How did you find out that the victim was leaving town the following day?
I can't remember that good.
Was it from a blog?
Objection, Your Honor. Leading.
It's not leading, Your Honor. Was it from a blog?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, what blog was that?
The blonde was Wendy.
No.
Do you want the culpable parties held accountable for murdering the father of your children?
Absolutely. I'm grateful they're already in jail.
But not if it's your family.
It's not my family.
I mean, somebody hired him, right?
Not necessarily.
Somebody paid him.
I learned something this morning.
Yeah, me too. You didn't want him held accountable if it was your family members. Didn't you tell law enforcement that?
That's not what I told law enforcement.
What did you tell law enforcement?
I told them that the person who did this should be held responsible and that I had nothing to do with it.
Page 122, lines 7 through 12. If somebody tried to kill my ex-husband, they should be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. The investigator says regardless of who it is, and your answer is, I mean, it would be different if I thought it were my brother.
But I don't think it was my family, is what I said.
Different now, isn't it?
No, it's not different. That's exactly
different
what I
today,
said
isn't
right
it?
here. No, that's not
No
right.
further questions.
You are listening to the Roberta Glass True Crime Report, putting the true back in true crime. From New York City, Roberta Glass is now on the record.
Okay. How is everybody? So there's been so much talk in the world of the Dan Markel case about who's going to flip on who's going to flip on who first. Well, Charlie is on the witness list for Donna's trial. So he's coming to Tallahassee and he's going to tell all because he's finally ready. It's every man out for themselves. It's all a big free-for-all because the Adelson family, after all, is probably the most selfish family in the world. I mean, we heard the jailhouse calls, not the wiretaps, the jailhouse calls, where Charlie Adelson is breaking down and crying and can't believe that the rest of his life is going to be in prison. And his mom is like, we're there for you. We're there for you, Charlie. We're there for you. And Harvey's same thing. When we know that they're about to board or try to board a plane to a non-extradition country. So they're so selfish. Of course they're going to flip. I mean, didn't Wendy almost flip on her brother when she said, my brother has this joke. I bought you this divorce present because this TV is a divorce present because it was cheaper than hiring a hitman. Ha, ha, ha. She told it to the TV repairman. She told it to the investigator that day. Didn't she almost kind of flip on him? And so what I wanted to talk about is the way I see it is that the Adelson family are really a four-headed monster that need this lie to exist. So if you want to answer the question, why did Wendy, with all her immunity, she could have gone up there and told the truth from start to finish. She had total immunity about what she testified to on the stand. She could have, thrown my parents under the bus. My mother was in on it with my brother. I found out after the fact and, save herself. It was horrifying. I couldn't believe they bought me this present. But she didn't, because for the Adelson family to exist, they exist on this lie. And I think that when Murder by Maestro brought up a really good point when we were talking privately, that the way that they talk about the hit that they put out that killed Dan Markel in private is very similar to the way that you would talk about it, or the way that we've heard them talk about it when they're being taped. They're never going to directly say, well, the time that we hired blah, blah, blah. And they're all going to say it was terrible. Charlie's terrible. Tallahassee people are so dumb. This is the family lie. And for Charlie to admit this and to turn on his sister would mean the crumbling of his idealized families, meaning this whole family exists on this lie, that they're good, upstanding members of society, and that Tallahassee is horrible, Georgia Cappleman is horrible, everybody against them is terrible, and we're great. No one F's with the Adelson family, right? It's like a cult. It's insiders and outsiders. And as law enforcement narrowed in on them, their world became smaller and smaller and smaller. And that only intensified the lie and the power of the lie. So I could be wrong, but I don't think I am. I don't think that Charlie is coming to Tallahassee to flip on his mother. I don't know what they would offer him. And I don't think they really need his testimony. I think he's coming to lie on the stand and tell his ridiculous lie to the jury. And I think a really good example of how they all buy into this lie can be heard in this jailhouse call. Thank you. True Pretty Lies and Alibis. I think I've been calling it True Lies. Sorry, Gigi. Pretty Lies and Alibis. Listen to how they all prop up each other's lie, right? And I think the only one who really woke up to this, and I think it's a normal part of adulthood when you stop idealizing your parents and see your family as a family with faults and problems, and your parents as real people. It's a critical part of becoming an adult. And I don't think Charlie Adelson ever got there. I think he's still like a teenager, wanting his parents' love and wanting their approval and thinking their family is absolutely the best family, and anything they do is justified and wonderful, even if it's something like a murder by hire. So take a listen to this call.
Hello, this is a prepaid collect call from an incarcerated individual at the Leon County Jail. This call is not private. It will be recorded and may be monitored. If you believe this should be a private call, please hang up and follow facility instructions to register this number as a private number. To accept charges and consent to this recorded call, press 1. To repeat, thank you for using Securus. You may start the conversation now.
Hi, Sean.
Yeah,
Hey, guys.
yeah, and I don't know why it's doing that, but no, it's just I had so much hope, and like the crazy thing is that I really wasn't getting that excited until this past weekend, and then after that, you had Thursday, Friday for the week before, then you had this whole week, last whole week, and then I had the Wendy's attorney testified on Friday, actually, maybe Thursday. And no, it was all day Thursday.
Yeah,
Friday.
She was Friday. She was Friday.
Okay.
Friday morning. Yeah.
So I sat up there and testified from Thursday at 8:45 till 5:45 at night. I come back, they put me on the stand for another hour Friday morning. and Campbell asked me for another 2 hours.
2 hours.
And like, okay, you're full on questioning, ask me anything.
I love Donna. 2 hours. She's like the backup singer. 2 hours, Charlie. 2 hours. Toot, toot, toot. You know, in the back. Just echoing what he's saying. So it's up on the stand for 2 hours. 2 hours. 2 hours, Charlie.
It doesn't come down to that. Like, and Dan said to me, he said, if I were to give you a score, I think you'd get a 95. He said he was very happy with how I testified. You know, my demeanor, my delivery, how I was like to the point, of like not, you know, elaborated on some stuff, was personable. Like he came across fantastic. Everybody, Bree was telling me, like, reading to me things that people were finally writing online about like positive things. Like finally people are writing positive things about the case.
Yeah.
And I was literally like, I was on cloud 9 over the weekend. I was like, I'm going to see my son. I'm going to get out. I'm going to go to see Scott. I'm going to go there. I'm going to have these plans over there. I'm going to have these plans. I'm going to enjoy my time with my dog. I can't wait to be on my boat. I can't wait to see my son. I'm planning on what restaurant I wanted to go to. Like I'd given away my food on Sunday night because I'm thinking like, okay, like, they're not going to let me go from the courthouse. Like I gave away all my food to 2 guys and friends, and like I'm feeling good. Like I was so sure that I was going home that like I didn't want to have people just pick my food. I'd rather give it to the 2 guys I'm friends with. So they gave me 2 packages of fish back, and once I go back to the pod, they'll give me some of the food back. And they just walked me through the pod, and I'm like, go get me some tuna fish, and they went up and got themselves. But I was like, you know, it was like, no, I thought I was like 90-something%.
People said he has an answer for everything because it's the truth. Okay? Then they said, I believe him. He was definitely not part of this killing. Another one.
Right. He was definitely not part of this killing. She's written them all down. Someone, he has an answer for everything. It's like probably someone was like, this guy is ridiculous. He has an answer for everything and not a good one. And someone probably wrote back, and he has an answer for everything because it's the truth. But there's always the chat in Law and Crime and Court TV is the most defense-friendly chat. I think people just come in there to troll, whatever case it is, not guilty. Durst case, whatever case, no matter how overwhelmingly guilty someone is, there are always people in the chat that are going to take the defense side and knowing nothing and argue it to the hilt. But Donna's taking it seriously, and then her friends, you'll hear, her friends have called. He was definitely not part of this killing. See, everybody? See how they're cementing the lie with each other? Other people believed it. They believed in the family. They believed in this lie. They believed us. We're not part of it. I mean, I think for Charlie to tell the real truth of what happened, it would cause some kind of I don't think he's emotional, so I can't say emotional break, but absolutely an absolute destruction of his entire worldview. Ditto Wendy, ditto Donna, ditto Harvey. They're all married to it. The only one who was healthy and got away from it was Robert. But this is necessary. So, they're like, I mean, you really have to look at the Adelson family as a 4-headed monster or a 4-headed human. There is no, they can't turn on each other because they all exist, even when they don't like each other, even when they're mad at each other. They all have to exist with the same reality around this. because their family is built around the idea that they are an elite, intelligent, part of the elite family, 1%. I don't know 1%, but rich, privileged. Not connected to the other side of the tracks, as well as Charlie works in those arenas.
Made her look absolutely desperate several times with incredible reaches like, quote, "You're untouchable, right?" She had to go to those kinds of traps because they have nothing substantial. He will walk. You may think he's guilty, but they haven't been close to proving it. And another one, if I were on that jury, there's no way I could say 100% he's guilty. The ex-girlfriend is totally unbelievable. She was shown to be such a liar. I mean,
I love that Donna's holding on to these comments that he may have been a part of it, but they can't prove it. Because of course that feeds into her worldview that Tallahassee is so incompetent. Does anybody remember the undercover at the Japanese restaurant between Charlie and Harvey, where Charlie looks into the camera and Harvey's talking and Charlie's like, I think there's a camera in that bag. He just like, it's just like Dahlia DePolito, like we're looking right into the lens. And Harvey says something about law enforcement. I didn't think that they were that smart. Because no one's as smart as the Adelson family. They never thought this would catch up to them. And now that it has, everybody's so stupid to think that we were involved. They're so stupid. They're such hicks, dumb hicks. Can't prove a thing. It's a kangaroo court. Tunnel vision investigation. They know all the innocence fraud lines. Tunnel vision investigation. Right? No evidence. Convicted with no evidence. Ambitious prosecutor. He's got all the lines down. It's like he studied them from Josh Dubin, his jury consultant / Innocence Project ambassador. He's learned all the innocence fraud lines. They'll all repeat them. But I love how she's holding on to it's not exactly positive. An innocent person wouldn't take a lot of pride and wouldn't really buck them up to hear he might have been involved, but they didn't prove it. That wouldn't really buck them up. They didn't prove it. I wasn't involved. I was innocent. What do you mean I might have been involved? There's no area for me to be involved in this. But Donna's like, hey, look, this comment, he might have been involved, but they didn't prove it. She thinks that's great.
On and on and on and on.
Well,
Wendy's is not believable.
Bree's reading me what they're saying. Like, Bree's reading to me what they're saying. I'm on cloud 9. I'm making phone calls over the weekend. I spoke to John Hader. I spoke to Mike Miz. I was like, just feeling great, thinking everything is going as good as you could have hoped. Absolutely as good as you could have hoped. Like, Campbell got to the point that she wanted to ask me what does Bree do for Dave, and how old is she? Like, why are you asking me her occupation and her age? Like,
because she had nothing to talk about.
Because you know that she's his nanny, and you're about to make me look bad. So instead, I said, well, Bree went to college, and then after she graduated college, she worked for Dave, and she was 24, and I was 39, and that's the mother of my child. Like, I shut her up. Like, she didn't have anything to say about, how old is, she was hoping that it was going to be, oh yeah, she's a nanny and she's 17.
Right. She didn't have much to say after she highlighted my predatory relationship of the nanny, of my sister's nanny. or my sister's boyfriend nanny, to be a little bit more accurate there.
She had another Georgia Campbell. Whoa! Did you get in trouble? No. No, she was actually 25, not 24, but like, I mean, it was like, it was, you know, I felt when I was, honestly, Mom, I felt when I was on the stand and she asked me, what does Bree do for Dave and how old is she? I was like, you have nothing else to ask me.
I know.
You've run out of questions. I mean, Mom, I've never in my life gone from one extreme of emotions to that, like this. I've never come close.
No.
Not.
We were all on a high. After you testified, we were all on a high. And Bree is right. All these messages came in positively. They couldn't believe how.
When Miles called up, he couldn't wait to tell us.
He said, kid's totally innocent. Totally innocent. And his son-in-law, who's a lawyer, called. He is totally innocent. He said he's getting off because they have absolutely nothing.
Right. It's been 8 days. It's been an 8-day trial with no evidence, Charlie. No evidence. Not guilty. That's what they told me. Miles called up. Miles, the family friend. The kid's innocent. That's right. The kid's innocent. Do you see how it becomes? They have to cheer each other on. It has to exist. Nothing. They had nothing. It was 8 days and no evidence. One, they all got up. It just sat there and gave no evidence. It's amazing. Amazing that it wasn't shorter.
I mean, this is from intelligent people. That's my problem.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Yeah, that's the catch. That's the jury of my peers. The jury of my peers was.
Yeah, the jury of my peers is my parents' friends, the family friends, and the few people that see this farce, this kangaroo court for what it is online. Probably Miles and Miles's sock puppets and Donna's sock puppets.
Was not there. There was one juror, number 15, that he would have said he's a juror of your peers. He knows that if you're going to find a guy guilty of first-degree murder, you better be so sure you know what happened. You better be really, 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 really sure you know what happened. But they just had Georgia going, listen, if you use your common sense and you see what's going on here, all this code talk, just, you know what guilty is. If you feel he's guilty, vote guilty. Like, that's like saying, like I said before, like you think the Kansas City Chiefs will beat the Dolphins. Like, that may be your feeling, but you sure aren't going to bet more than, you're not going to say I'm 90% sure, 95% sure, 99% sure. Like, that's the realm that you have to be. You're going to take somebody's fucking life.
Yes.
Like, I mean, I can't. I can't get over.
No, I can't get.
Like, you're taking somebody's fucking life from them, and you're destroying lives.
No, you destroy lives. You took Dan Markel's life from him. That's what your family did. That's what they're all talking around, destroying lives. You didn't just end Dan Markel's life. You affected every person that loved him, his family. You sentenced them to a life sentence of grief. All his students that enjoyed his class, that could have learned from him. I mean, the ripples go out. Extend. And it goes beyond the Adelson family problem. Ending the Adelson family problem has real deep impact.
And you're being shown fucking emails, or like a book that Wendy wrote, or autopsy photos. Like, The autopsy photos are horrible. I didn't write the book, and she can say whatever the fuck she wants. She used it to rub it in their face to be like, look, this rich, educated white girl is laughing at you on her way to civilization. And isn't that what she did? Isn't that what you did? Tallahassee was just a stop on your way to civilization. It even says it in the book. You were foreshadowing. You were making fun of people.
Right. You think that Tallahassee, it was all a revenge. The fact that they all found you guilty beyond a reasonable doubt was because they were all mad about what Wendy wrote in her book about Tallahassee. She didn't help you on the stand, Charlie. Certainly wasn't a impactful performance. Okay, just a few more minutes of this.
Nothing. She had absolutely nothing. And they had a liar for their big witness. So nothing.
And 2 big witnesses. The guy.
Listen.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You know, everybody talks about the Dolce Vita tape, but really it's Katie and Luis Rivera, both of the people that the Adelson family counted on should they ever be caught, that nobody's going to believe them. Nobody's going to believe these low-class, Latin King, criminal bunch. Nobody's going to believe them if they ever testify against us, the Adelson family. Not our good word. We lawyered up. We did everything the correct way. We had the best laid plans. But they were fantastic. They're both very believable. Now, I don't think Katie's telling the whole truth. And do I think Luis Rivera is telling the whole truth? No, I don't think we'll ever get it. And I think that's the entire story. You don't get the entire story in these trials. You get a bit of the story. And I think that there's some kind of, how do I say it? I think that some of us are waiting for one witness to just tell it all. I think I think we were all really hopeful with Katie when she finally decided to talk, and that she would just spill it all, talk about the Adelson connection totally. But she clammed right up. She wasn't going to open up really about that, what she knew. It was just between her and Charlie. She's not going to bring in Wendy and Donna really too much into this. So I think if you're waiting for one witness to tell it all and kind of spoon feed you the whole story, I'm not hopeful for that happening. I could be wrong.
Yeah, but I don't want to talk about that. But I'm just saying, like,
no.
Yes. But I'm just saying, like, even when somebody was lying, they're just like, well, it's okay if they're lying. You read these emails. Like, holy shit. If I was just sitting there thinking, honestly, you know what I was thinking? You know what I was thinking? If I knew it was going to be like this.
I know what you were thinking. I was thinking.
This is a fucking TV production.
Yes, I knew what you were thinking. You were in my womb. I know, Charlie. My Charlie. I knew what you were thinking. Oh, so enmeshed. This family. So I think that Charlie's just going to get on the stand and lie. I'm going to take a quick break and just pull up. Hold on one sec, and just pull up, if I can, the undercover with Charlie and Harvey. Hang on. I just want you guys to see it. Don't go anywhere. See you in 35 seconds. If you are enjoying this episode of my True Crime Report, please hit the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and share this episode. Get access to exclusive podcasts and other bonus content by becoming a patron today. If you have a question or comment for me, shoot me a super chat and I'll do my best to answer it and read it on air. Thanks so much. Now back to the show. Okay, we're back in business. So for those of you who haven't seen this is from True Lifestyles channel. And this is from April 21st, 2016. For those of you listening on podcast, surveillance was conducted at the Meadors restaurant at 5759 Bird Road, Miami, Florida, between Charlie and Harvey Adelson. The following is a partial transcript of the captured conversation. So I'll try to, hopefully you can hear some of it. So we're like looking at Charlie and Harvey eating from the inside of the undercover's bag. So you can just see it's almost like a little, what is it like? Looking almost like through a kaleidoscope or something. But look at how many times Charlie looks right into this bag.
Theresa, yeah, you can say it all day long. I can even tell you it's a giant stadium.
Does he say, I can even tell you he's at Giant Stadium? That's what it sounded like to me. That's it. So you can say it all day long. I can even tell you he's a something. He's always doing these sports metaphors. Maybe that's where maybe that's why I'm hearing that. That's it.
That's it. Yeah, all day long. It's not done like that.
So do you remember when Charlie references this on his cross? He said, remember the time when I leaned over and whispered the funny thing is? That's when I told my dad about, right? About being extorted. That's what I was telling him about, my extortion. This is right after the bump. And Georgia goes, but we couldn't hear that, right? Isn't that unfortunate for your case? Doesn't that, I think she even said that really sucks, if I'm remembering correctly. That your one piece of exonerating evidence is the one time we couldn't hear.
I know that we talked about I was surprised they didn't come to me. One or the other. But the woman's usually the weak.
Okay, I'm surprised they didn't come to me. One or the other, but the woman is usually the weaker choice. So Harvey's saying, I'm surprised they didn't come to me for the money, which is interesting because, of course, Donna was higher up on their list for being more involved, which is interesting. It's a good question to ask. Why didn't they go to Harvey for the bump?
Your choice. Someone else going to give it.
He's so misogynistic, right? The woman's so weak, she's going to give in and hand over the money, which is the weaker choice.
That's fine.
There he is, looking right into the eye of the camera lens.
That's where you're at. I actually think it's somebody that has to reach out, they have to do something. They have to listen. If they ask you a question, yes or no, someone's just going to say no. So there has to be some kind of tactic to come in to the introduction, you know, it's like, it makes sense, it really does. I think they're all smart. And the funny thing is, I'll take it. Thank you. Now you gotta say, listen, if 50% of people want to cooperate, why would you not? Like, it's just the attitude of, all right, I'll pay to make it go right, but it's utter nonsense.
I think there's a recorder in that bag, and that ends the end of the surveillance. And they say, I'll talk to you outside here. I think it's a public place. I don't think you do need a warrant for that. Lawyers in the audience, don't think you need a warrant to record in a public place. So there's the end of that. But I find it really interesting that there they are. There is Charlie looking directly into the camera, just like Dalia DiPolito. Like they know, their gut tells them, and that's how you end up like Charlie did, with all these guns around you when he got arrested, increasingly paranoid, not able to sleep. Donna, so their world of paranoia gets more intense, as it goes on. From as soon as Sigfredo got arrested on, they knew the cuffs could be put on them at any minute if you're guilty, right? Of course, their defense is going to be for Donna. And listening, I did that tape of Dan Rashbaum, went over his interview with STS, and he constantly says Donna did nothing wrong by going to the airport, as if she was just breezing by the airport to pick up some honey buns or some. The cuisine is fantastic here. We just came by. We thought we also just buy a memento while we were here, a ticket to Vietnam. We brought one in advance just to make it more realistic. We're cosplaying. we're cosplaying someone who's going on a long flight to a non-extradition treaty country. So I'm curious whether that language is going to come into Donna's trial. She just went to the airport. She thought better of fleeing. She knew she was so worried that her son had been wrongfully convicted. But I think that's the language we might hear in court. She went to the airport, not that she was boarding a flight to Vietnam with every intention. That's why they cuffed her on the jetway, is because they wanted to make sure that, just like they do when you're hiring a hitman with an undercover, that you can't say that you changed your mind. They want you as close to boarding that plane as possible. They want to make it really clear in a hitman case that what you're buying. Hey, Barb Nauman. Do you think Donna will be wearing a stun cuff on her leg like suitcase Sarah. Yeah, I thought that was really interesting. That my understanding is that she can't be cuffed. What I'm curious about, Barb, so this is Sarah Boone's trial, which I'm also following. I'm curious. I think Donna is going to play up her age. I think Dan Rashbaum is going to be talking about her as a grandmother and how involved she was in the kids. And she was into making cookies and matzah and Marjone, any other M word besides murder, not murder. She baked banana bread. She was just your homiest Grammy type grandmother. And she would never be involved in a murder for hire. She just loved her kids, and maybe she loved them a little too much. I think that will be the opening statement by either Alec Morris or Rashbaum. Probably Alec Morris, I would think, would take the opening. She loved her kids too much, and that's not a crime. To be overly involved in your daughter's life, it's not a crime. So I think they're going to be playing up her age and her sex. Yeah, not murder. But Sarah Boone, what I'm curious about is who's going to buy her clothes, like who's going to buy her outfits. Because when I went to the NXIVM trial with Keith Raniere, he had all these great clothes that he was on camera wearing before arrest. And then they bought him these like really cheap sweaters, all in pastel type colors. Like he had all these good looking, sort of expensive looking clothes he was filmed in beforehand. And then there he is in court with these ill-fitting sweaters knit sweaters that his looked like acrylic sweaters that his lawyer bought for him. So I'm curious who's going to buy Sarah Boone's clothes, because she has a right not to be dressed in the prison garb. So yeah, I'm curious about that. Thanks, Barb. Now I appreciate it. So where are we? Oh, it's awfully late. So, hey, this is so sweet. Do you know Tony Natale? Is that who you're talking about? So I wanted to show you. So the one time that Wendy has been pushed about her part in this murder is not just with Georgia Kappelman, but this is from Katie's lawyer, DeCoste. And I think it's often forgotten about because it's a very different it's a very aggressive style, very different. I thought we'd just watch it. So talking about how she rejects any part of this and any part of her family, even when it's sitting right in her face. Let's take a listen. So this is how Wendy protects the lie.
Please be seated. We're ready to continue with the testimony. Ms. Kappelman, you may continue with your direct if necessary.
Thank you, Your Honor. So I'm going to approach you with what I've marked.
Oh, I met Barbara Boucher. This is so sweet. I met her in court. Thanks for commenting. Just curious. He had so many girlfriends, didn't he?
States Exhibit 64. Adelson, did you have an opportunity to review States 99 of disc containing wiretap calls relating to this case?
I did.
And as part of our pre-trial preparations, were you asked to listen to those calls and verify whether or not you could authenticate some of the voices on those calls?
So I was asked not to listen to the whole call, but just to listen to a few seconds, enough to be able to identify the.
Hold on 1 second. Let me take a quick break. I'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. If you are enjoying this episode of my True Crime Report, please hit the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and share this episode. Get access to exclusive podcasts and other bonus content by becoming a patron today. If you have a question or comment for me, shoot me a super chat and I'll do my best to answer it and read it on air. Thanks so much. Now back to the show. Okay, I just wanted to cue that up. Thank you. I thought it was pretty close, and I was in fact right. But I didn't want you to have to sit through that.
All right, thank you. Cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you. Ms. Adelson, this is all about you, isn't it?
Excuse me?
This.
Great question. It's such a perfect question, isn't it? This is all about you. This whole trial's about you. And so was Charlie's trial, and so will Donna's trial be. And she walks in like, I just learned something today. I just learned some new information. She walks in with this kind of like babe in the woods act. And it's so odd because it's hit the Krista Koss hitting the nail on the head there.
This is all about you, right?
I was called to be a witness and I'm testifying, so I don't understand the question. Is it a question?
There's about 100 people in this courtroom, right?
There are people in the courtroom.
Possibly thousands watching, right?
I have no idea who's watching.
And it's all because of your failed marriage, right?
I disagree with that.
You disagree that your ex-husband is dead because of your family.
Yes, I disagree.
These jurors are here for weeks doing their civic duty because of your marriage, right?
No.
Katie's going through this ordeal because of that marriage, right?
No.
Dan Markel's parents are going through absolute misery because of your failed marriage. Isn't that right?
No, that's incorrect.
Well, let's talk about the marriage. You and Professor Markel, you met when you were in law school. You told that to Miss Campbell.
Right. So that's so interesting. No, that's not right. So the Markel family isn't going through hell because of my failed marriage, meaning this is done for some other reason not connected to my marriage. What would it be? And the family always planned on it being her failed relationship with Jeffrey Lacasse. And then when now they're investigating Dan Markel's relationship with Adler, I mean, come on. It's not gonna work. Like jilted lovers. Like, give me a break. Amy Adler's ex came all the way, barely is cognizant of Dan Markel's relationship with his ex-wife. But okay, he's going to come all the way to Tallahassee or have someone else. But it's like they're stuck on that. And even there was notes in Donna's binder about Amy Adler, like they love this idea of this jilted ex-lover because it's, I guess, the only other thing they can think of. I don't know. So odd, isn't it?
And it was a whirlwind romance, right? Right?
It was not a whirlwind romance, no.
It led to a wedding, February 26th of 2006. You had a big wedding in Boca Raton, right?
Did we get married on February 26, 2006? Is that the question? Yes.
In Boca Raton.
In Boca Raton, Florida.
And it wasn't a small wedding. It was a big wedding.
There were many people in attendance.
All right. In this marriage, it led to 2 children, right? Your 2 boys.
Are you asking me if I have 2 boys?
Yes.
Yes.
And Professor Markel, he was
This marriage led to 2 boys. Are you asking me if I have 2 boys? I mean, that's just like when Georgia Kappelman asks, did you vomit on the table? Oh, no, I threw up. Or when she asked Charlie, did you have a gun? No, I did not have a firearm on me. Always has to change the language, rephrase the question. I always think the way I view it is as a means to gain control and to make the question look like they're asking something different than what they're asking, I think. What do you think about this change of language? I mean, clearly it's a control game. But did the marriage produce 2 boys? Are you asking me if I had 2 boys? Are you suggesting, Wendy, that the fathers are someone else, not Dan Markel?
Great father, wasn't
He was a very good father, yes.
he? Those boys were his world, right?
As well as his work, yes,
And they adored him too, didn't they?
absolutely.
Now, this marriage started to fall apart, right?
It did.
But there were problems from the very beginning, weren't there? Right?
Are you asking me, what is the very beginning? The very beginning of when we got married?
Literally at the wedding.
There were problems before we got married.
All right, so at the wedding, and the government asked you about kosher law, right?
About what, I'm sorry?
Keeping kosher,
About keeping kosher, yes.
right?
The government
And your
asked.
wedding, at your wedding was the groom's family, the Markel family, and they are more strict than your family and friends about keeping kosher.
They do not keep kosher.
Wasn't that one of the problems in your marriage, that Professor Markel was very insistent about keeping kosher?
About his kosher rules, but those are different than his family's.
So you're saying that it wasn't a problem at the wedding, that there were people from the groom's side of the family that were there that strictly keep kosher, that they were told that it was going to be kosher food, but it actually wasn't?
So there was a misunderstanding about whether the food was going to be kosher style or more in adherence with kosher law. There was a miscommunication about that.
Okay, so for those that don't know, there is no such thing unless kosher style was a phrase invented by Nathan Hot Dogs to appeal to an audience that was, or a market that didn't keep kosher, that wasn't looking for a kosher product, but was looking for the same great quality meat that you get when you buy kosher meat. So they called it kosher style. Anything else called kosher style would be like deli pickle, cold cuts. Do not tell me that Wendy Adelson was serving hot dogs and cold cuts. That's the only thing that fits kosher style. And for her to say that, well, he kept kosher, but in our home, nobody else did. You have to have a kosher kitchen. And I don't want to minimize it. It's not just like being vegetarian and that this is the way Wendy's presenting it. Like, oh, it's just like really, there are different levels of being kosher, keeping kosher. And I had I don't know how many of you were there for this live, but I had a Super Bowl party over at my apartment with some of my boyfriend's friends who kept kosher. And we got kosher pizza, which you think like, oh, right, problem solved. We'll all eat kosher pizza, fine. But then you have to buy paper plates because all our plates have had milk and meat and milk mixed on it, right? Dairy and meat mixed on it. They're not kosher. Our forks aren't kosher. When the pizza got cold, we couldn't put it in the oven because our oven's not kosher. This could not be a thing that Wendy could not keep kosher, cook her non-kosher meals in, and Dan could just use the same kitchen. It's a massive problem when one person wants to keep kosher and the other doesn't. And when you go on JDate, right, a Jewish dating website to look for your future husband, it was very important to Donna, because we know from Robert that she insisted that Robert marry a Jewish woman. And she looked with Wendy on JDate for a Jewish man that someone who on JDate might be keeping kosher. And it's a big undertaking. You have to have a lot of discipline to do it. It takes a lot of thought and discipline and sacrifice. So I don't hold it against anyone who doesn't want to do it. But to not do it at your wedding and alienate all those guests, and yes, it would have been significantly more expensive and more time and more trouble. But it was, in my opinion, Wendy and Donna sending the signal to Dan to get in line. And he was not going to be beaten into submission or molded into the person they wanted him to be. So it's this kosher style thing. I need to make my t-shirts that say kosher style. It's like, I mean, it's such a ridiculous lie. It's so stupid.
So you had people that strictly keep kosher eating non-kosher food, which is a big deal.
That actually is not what happened. You had, Danny was upset that it was kosher style and not strictly adhering to kosher law. So he was disappointed.
So there's problems right from the beginning.
That was a problem at our wedding. Yeah.
Fast forward now to September.
Yeah, it created a problem at our wedding. At the one time when you think that there's going to be togetherness, it's going to be a forever memory. It's so disruptive to do at a wedding. And we know that Wendy had broken up with Dan Markel before this. And one of the things that Abigail Schreier talks about in her victim impact letter is that this was a blind spot for Dan Markel, that he didn't see these differences between Wendy and himself as major impediments, as challenges to overcome, instead of impediments to a happy married life. And the boss lady, thanks so much for being a member for 5 months. No such thing as kosher life. It's kosher or not. Exactly. And there's different levels. I've gone over how you make your kitchen kosher. It's a whole ordeal. Hot water, steaming hot water on the counters. I mean, it's challenging. It's challenging. I don't want to make it seem like a small thing. You know, as much as I dislike Wendy Adelson, it's not a small thing, but if it's something you have to be committed to. And for Wendy also to agree to this marriage and not to be on board with this is a serious problem. But it was aggressive. It's an aggressive move. No kosher food at the wedding. It's very aggressive. It's like she hated him from the beginning, some way, or resented him from the beginning in some way.
September 10th, 2012. Professor Markel, he's away on a business trip, right?
Yes.
He's in New York City at New York University, right?
I believe so, yes.
And he's doing a presentation.
I don't know what he was doing.
Your husband at the time was in New York to give a presentation. You knew that, right?
I knew he was in New York. I didn't know if he was attending a conference or giving a presentation, but he was in New York for work.
Now, you had not communicated with him for 2 days.
I really don't remember.
You text him at around 2:30.
She doesn't know that she doesn't know that he was giving a presentation. Of course you know what he was doing. Exactly what he was doing. You're married. Of course, I don't know whether he was giving, my memory's so hazy because it's going to be really hazy coming up. I don't know if it was a presentation or if he was just at a conference, or maybe he was running the New York City Marathon. Could have been. I don't know. I heard New York. I thought maybe that he might have been scaling the Empire State Building. Maybe something for work. Don't know.
in the afternoon, right? Right before he's about to do the presentation.
I really don't remember.
But you do remember dropping the bomb on him, don't you? Telling him that you wanted a divorce.
So I did not drop a bomb on him. We'd been in therapy for several months beforehand where I told him several times I wanted a divorce.
You say it's not a bomb, but you agree with me that he begged you to reconsider.
He was very upset and yes, wanted me to reconsider, but
In that phone call, he's begging you to reconsider. Please don't leave. Please don't break up our family, right?
he was very upset, yes.
And he was heartbroken. I mean, upset indicates that there was anger. What he was heartbroken, right?
That I decided to divorce him after telling him I would, yes.
Despite being at NYU for a presentation, he rushes home. He gets on the next flight, right?
I honestly don't remember if he got on the next flight, but he did come home quickly.
2:30, he finds out in New York. By 11 p.m., he's walking in the door to your old house at Trescott Drive, right?
I don't know.
But you do know that when he walks in the house, what he finds. You know that, right?
Yes, I left him the papers.
You left the divorce papers on the bed, right?
Yes,
Half the furniture was gone.
half the furniture was not gone.
A good amount of his stuff was gone.
Nothing of his was gone.
The boys' stuff was gone, right?
Some of the boys' things were gone. I'd taken enough so that I had for the boys, but no,
You were gone,
I was gone, yes.
and so were his boys.
His boys were not gone. He saw them the next day, and they would not have been awake if he's coming home at 11 p.m.
Let's stay on topic here.
I'd
When
love
he
to stay on
walks in the
topic.
when he walks in the door, the boys are not in the house, right?
Correct.
And you did not tell Professor Mark.
Yeah, I just, I put life-size dolls in the non-existent furniture that was there that I took. I cleaned out the house, but they wouldn't have been awake anyway. It wasn't such a bomb because he couldn't have seen them anyway to kiss them goodnight while they were asleep. Could have watched them sleep. I mean, it's so just like what she does with this language. Like he saw them the next day. No, I thought, my understanding, wasn't he looking to put out like kidnapping charges on her from this? No one knew where she was. Am I remembering this correctly? Let me know. I'm getting a little rusty on this case. It's been a while.
Markel, where you were taking the boys. He may have seen them the next day, but you did not let him know where you were going to be staying with his boys.
With our boys? Yes,
So you agree with me that they're also his.
of course they're his.
And he should be entitled to know where his wife is taking his children.
Absolutely.
That's not all you took, is it?
Excuse me?
You two had a joint checking account at Schwab, right?
We did.
And you went into that account before you dropped the bomb, and you took out half of that account, right?
Correct.
Roughly.
Right. I just took out half the money and most of the furniture. Took everything I wanted, and including the Holocaust ring, and I left. What? So Debbie Gibby says he didn't see them the next day. He didn't know where they were. Right. That's how I remember it. Thank you for brushing me up, Debbie, on this. That's how I remembered it. I just wasn't certain.
$350,000.
Half, yes. Of our joint account.
$350,000.
I don't remember the amount, but yes.
You know that it was in the hundreds of thousands.
I really don't remember the amount, sir.
Is it that insignificant of a sum to you that you
I'm
don't
not saying
remember?
it's an insignificant sum. I'm saying I can't attest to the amount that was there.
I'm going to tone it down now. You were unhappy in the marriage, right?
That's why I got divorced, yes.
And it happens. Marriages fall apart, right?
Yes.
But you complained constantly about it, didn't you?
No, I don't think I complained constantly.
To anyone that would listen.
No, that's not true.
You agree with me that you complained to the one person that would actually do something about it.
I don't understand what you're asking.
Your big brother, Charles Adelson, you complained to him about how bad Professor Markel was and how much you hated him and didn't want to be in a marriage with him.
I definitely talked to my brother about how unhappy I was in my marriage. If that's the question, then yes.
Let's
Is
talk
that the
about it.
question?
Yes, that is a question. You talked to your brother, Charles Adelson, about how bad your marriage was.
I did, yes.
Let's talk about it. Government asked you about Charles Adelson. He's an intelligent guy, right?
He is smart.
Yeah. He's both book smart and street smart, right?
I would say so.
You would say that he's a talker.
He does like to talk.
He's got the gift of gab, so to speak.
I wouldn't say he has the gift of gab, but he does talk.
He knows what to say in the moment.
I wouldn't say that's true either.
You would say, though, that he is. Now, you were asked questions about, drug purchasing and stuff like that. You would agree with me that he's also street smart.
I mean, I think he has common sense.
And that he lives life to a certain extent on both sides of the track. During the day, he's doing periodontal work, whatever that is, crowns, root canals, whatever that is. He's doing that during the day. At night, he's out with friends, he's buying drugs. He's living life on both sides of the track.
I don't know about that he's out buying drugs.
Now, let's talk for a second about WhatsApp. And as an aside here for a second, the government asked you the question if you used WhatsApp, right? You remember that?
I remember them asking me, yes.
On the day that Professor Markel was killed, you went in for the interview, right?
I talked to the police.
And you also gave them your phone for them to inspect.
Absolutely.
So the determination of what, if any, WhatsApp was being used, they would have from the download they did that day of your phone.
Sure.
Now, would you be surprised to learn that your brother used WhatsApp?
No.
You would agree with me that WhatsApp, and you explained it well, is end-to-end encryption.
Correct.
In your lay opinion, if you can explain to the jurors, just in case they don't know, what that means.
I know that it's something we use at my work because essentially it has the ability to keep things more private. I also know that nothing's actually private and that anyone who wants to can uncode the messages. So that's what we tell people at our work.
So the thought is with WhatsApp, if I use my phone and I call somebody, the call could be listened to. If I text somebody, it's recordable, right?
I think so.
But with WhatsApp, you can send messages or have phone calls where there's no record of it.
I don't think that's true. I think there is still a record of it.
But the belief and the thought, I'll withdraw that question. Your lay understanding, though, is that the footprint that it leaves is much less than that of normal communications.
I think it's different, but I think it still leaves a digital footprint that's easily uncodable.
If you were to send a WhatsApp message to Ms. Kappelman, it would show that a message was sent, but it would be hard to get what the content of the message is.
I don't think that's true.
All right. Let's talk about your brother's jokes now. You don't deny that he joked about hiring a hitman.
He did.
You don't deny that he repeated this joke.
He did.
And he made this joke right before a hitman murdered Professor Markel.
I don't know that to be true.
Okay. He made the joke right before, and I'll leave out the hitman part, Professor Markel was killed.
He made the joke the morning that I talked to him.
Can you think of one person in this world that would actually hire two people to go kill Professor Markel other than your family?
Wait, so she's saying that he made this joke that morning, the morning of Dan Markel's murder? She made the joke again to the Geek Squad. Then she made the joke to Isom, the detective. So this joke was told 3 times on the day of Dan Markel's murder. Little odd. But here she is with immunity. She could throw all of them under the bus. But they all have to live the lie. Do you get what I'm saying? Do you get where I'm going with this? And depending on the day, sometimes I'm very confident that the next person after Donna Adelson will be Wendy Adelson. Other days, I think it will end with Donna. Depending on what they have, I think there's no reason to think that we're going to find out new things at Donna Adelson's trial. We haven't seen all of the discovery or all of the exhibits yet. And we tend to, at least if Charlie's trial's any indication, we tend to find out new stuff. And, people People tell me things. I don't know, whether things will come up or not. You just don't know at a trial. But as for turning on each other, I cannot see Charlie. I mean, all Charlie has in the world are his parents and his family. That's it, really. And they have gone through life. I can't see them. They've gone through life protecting the family unit. Who else would put in that kind of money to incentivize, let's just put it that way, Dan Markel to move to Miami? I mean, if my brother were having trouble with if he had an ex-wife, I wouldn't put in $10. I don't know $10, but whatever. It's not my life, but they're all, do you get what I'm saying? They're all a four-headed monster person. They're all living very enmeshed. There is no turning on each other. Doesn't exist in that world, no matter how uncomfortable prison is. Charlie Adelson, I believe, will go to his grave saying he didn't do it. Same thing with Donna. There will be no confession. Donna's going to be telling everyone she knows in prison, should she get convicted, that she's been wrongfully convicted. And looking for loopholes to the very end. Same with Charlie. And Wendy's the lawyer and protected herself the best. She couldn't help herself from driving by the crime scene. But where are the answers? Where are the responses to Donna's emails? Nowhere. And she was really trained, as a lawyer's trained, to not make evidence against herself. And when she talked on WhatsApp. Sure, it looks strange to talk to your brother for 18 minutes about what to do with a not fixable TV. I mean, how does that conversation go? Once again, oh, they say I can't fix the TV. What should I do with it? Should I not fix it or not fix it? Because I cannot fix it. That's what they're telling me I can do with this. Oh, yeah, I don't think you should fix that TV. I mean, wasn't covered under warranty. Another point I missed last time. So what were the Geek Squad coming to fix it for? They're saying it's unfixable. What's an 18-minute conversation? Okay, just a little bit more of this. This is brilliant. Krista It's an excellent cross of Wendy.
Ms. Adelson, please address me and answer the question.
It calls for an unbelievable amount of speculation. I mean, I'm responsible for coming up with, that's the prosecutor's duty, no, to figure out who's responsible.
You just said a moment ago that you disagree that hitmen killed Professor Markel. That's what you said, right? So my question to you is, if you're able to say, well, it wasn't hitmen, then who? Tell this jury, who on this planet would have wanted to kill Professor Markel?
I have no idea.
All right. Let's get into that a little bit.
I mean, she's laughing. They're talking about the murder of her ex-husband. Even if she didn't like him, it is the father of her children, and she's laughing. I mean, if you don't think the jury's picking up on that, you're crazy. Her affect is totally off. I don't know how many of you followed the case of Jeffrey McDonald, who went on Dick Cavett and gave this kind of performance. This kind of lighthearted. Well, this is what happened when my pregnant wife and two daughters, Kimberly and Kristen, were murdered, laughing. And I'm just surprised Chris Cost isn't said, do you think this is, well, it just calls for unbelievable speculation. Judge, can you help me out? I mean, talk about wrong affect. Talk about something terribly off and wrong and missing. and gives you that really hair on the back of your neck psychopathic feeling that she's not even feeling. For her, this is a game. She has immunity. She's just going to play with this, just play with the cost as much as she can, lie as much as she can. She's not sweating a thing, and she's out of there. And I don't think she makes, she's not attached to her, a family the way Charlie is, and, in the same intense way. Her family, her mom will be in prison, her brother will be in prison, and she will just go on. And it will be a sob story to tell her friends about how her brother and mother were all wrongfully convicted. And poor Wendy, because she's always the victim in every story. Oh, she's always the heroine, and she's always the victim of every story. It's always about her. Who else writes a podcast about her ex-husband's murder? Who else writes a book? With themselves as the hero. That same way.
But I want to make sure that's clear. This joke is made right before Professor Markell is murdered, right?
The joke was made many times.
It was made right before Professor Markell was murdered. Yes or no?
Yes.
July 18, 2014, you're interviewed, and you make a statement saying, I knew this would happen. You said that, right?
I did.
All right. Now I want to talk about your knowledge and your belief on this. You're a smart person, right?
How am I supposed to answer that?
Well, let's go through your resume. You went to Brandeis University, right?
I did.
You graduated magna cum laude.
I did.
If you could explain to the jury what that means.
It means I studied a lot and got good grades.
All right. It means, and to speak, I'm from the Northeast. My Boston accent may give it away. It means you're wicked smart, right?
That's very
You had a
nice.
high
Thank you.
GPA, a very high GPA.
I work hard.
You also went and you got a master's degree from the University of Cambridge.
I did.
You were a Gates Scholar.
I was.
You then go to the University of Miami School of Law, which is a top tier law school, tier 1, right?
Okay.
Right? We're talking about your level of intelligence. You went to the University of Miami Law School, right?
I did, yes.
You also clerked at the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, right?
I did.
Now, to get a clerkship out of law school, it's a very difficult thing to do, right?
It's challenging.
You have to have top grades. You have to go through a rigorous selection process, right?
Yes.
You then become a professor at the Florida State University College of Law, right?
Yes.
You're also a published author, right?
Now you're just embarrassing me.
Why are you embarrassed that you're a published author?
I don't like talking about myself.
Is it because...
Right. The woman who wrote a book, wrote a podcast, doesn't like all about herself, doesn't like talking about herself. Now you're just embarrassing me. Can you tell me some more? Give me some more narcissistic supply? She's just playing with this lawyer. She's playing up there.
Because the book that you wrote discredited Tallahassee and spoke ill of it?
The book did not discredit Tallahassee. It wasn't about Tallahassee.
Let's stay on topic and ask a question again with everything that we just went through. You're a smart woman, right?
I am a smart woman.
There's information.
Yeah, no one's saying the book was about Tallahassee, but you said it was basically the armpit of America. Wendy. Book wasn't about Tallahassee, it was about you.
About this case everywhere. You'd agree with me on that, right?
I've been advised by my lawyer not to read it.
All right. Now, we're not talking about reading stuff. There's podcasts,
Also not to listen.
TV shows,
Also not to watch.
articles.
Don't read.
And so you've made the decision. Now, you're a lawyer yourself too, right?
I am.
And you made the decision, I'm not going to look at any of this stuff.
Correct.
I don't want to know what happened to the father of my 2 children.
Not I don't want to know what happened.
How can you say you love those boys if you don't care who killed the father that they loved?
Of course I care who killed the father that they loved.
Then why won't you look at the stuff?
I've been advised not to.
Are you afraid that when you look at it, you're going to realize that your brother did this?
I am not afraid of that.
Now, of course, you've, and we won't get into privileged communications, but you've spoken to your lawyer about the case.
How are we not getting into privileged communications? Yes, I've spoken to my lawyer about the case.
You're very intelligent. You have one of the top defense attorneys in the country, former federal prosecutor, John Moore, right there in the blue suit, right?
He is my attorney.
You're telling me with all of this at your disposal, your intelligence, his experience, and all this information, that you don't care to find out who it is that killed Professor Markel?
This is not that I don't care to find out. My job is to take care of those boys, and that is what I do. I don't see how it helps take care of them to go reading and watching and soaking up all of the horrible information that's out there.
You don't.
Right, because I'm an extra super mom. This is what I feel when I watch this is I can't keep my eyes off of it, and I can't stop watching. I was just going to play a little bit of this, but now I'm pulled in. So what she said, I feel like DeCoste is asking the questions that we would all ask. You aren't curious? I mean, this is the question that Robert Adelson asked his family. Doesn't anybody want to know what happened to Dan? Because the obvious answer is not the obvious question. The obvious answer is she's not curious because she already knows. Here's this super scholar. He's hungry for knowledge of law, everything else, right? I mean, you have to be somewhat curious person to do well in school. And she has no curiosity at all. What happened? She doesn't even have a theory on what happened to her ex-husband. I mean, she witnessed it. Isn't that part of her trauma? That she drove by the crime scene and didn't even realize it? She thought a tree went down. Won't she have guilt about that forever? I mean, isn't that what she was saying at the police station that day? Oh, I thought a tree fell down. I didn't know. What's going on here? It's so odd.
Don't realize that you could be helpful in finally untangling this to give this jury the truth about what happened to Professor Markel?
I have been nothing but helpful since this started.
To what happened to their son? By you looking at it, you are at the center of all this, but you won't look at anything to help in the process.
I've done nothing but help in this process.
You came here and testified.
I came here and testified. I spoke to the police for 6 hours without anyone present. I signed over my cell phone, my car, my house, everything, my computer. What else do I have or know that you haven't seen?
You came here because you were subpoenaed and had no choice.
Correct.
Right?
This is not fun. I would not do this by choice.
You've been inconvenienced.
I've not been inconvenienced.
This is not fun, she says, smiling.
Professor Markel was shot in the head.
I'm not complaining about being here. This is my duty. I'm here.
This is my duty, a duty that I avoided and would only do with an immunity deal.
We'll get back to you complaining about being here. Do you honestly expect this jury to believe that you haven't confronted your brother about all of this?
Yes, I do.
Yes, you did confront him?
Yes, I do expect them to believe that I did not confront my brother because I didn't.
Or maybe you don't need to because you know the truth in this case. You already know it. That he went behind your back, right?
Did not happen.
Just like he has done with past boyfriends. He's done that in the past where he's gone behind your back when you were having problems in a relationship and dealt with it himself.
No.
Ms. Adelson, you understand that until you expose your brother what he did, that everybody's going to consider you as guilty. You understand that, right?
What is the question that you're asking me?
You understand that until you expose your brother and explain what he did, that he went behind everybody's back, that he hired a hitman to murder your ex-husband, you'll remain guilty in the eyes of the world.
I can't speak to the eyes of the world. I can only know that I have done nothing wrong.
Or maybe you are guilty.
I am not guilty.
So a witness in this case, and I'm not going to get into their testimony, but one of the hitmen, the convicted hitman, implicates you. On July 17, 2014, the day before the murder, the morning before, he says that you were walking on Trescott with the two boys, that you walked down the driveway and into the house.
That never happened.
Right, because Professor Markel, I apologize, Professor Markel, he had the kids. Based on the way that your guy's schedule was, on that day, he would have had the children in the morning, and you're going through such a bad divorce, you wouldn't be at his house, right?
I wouldn't be at his house anyway, but not because we were going through a bad divorce. At that time, things were pretty copacetic.
All right, so we're coming back to maybe you do know, or maybe you were involved.
Excuse me? What's the question that you're asking me? I'm
giving you a header of what we're talking about so that it will ease you in the question, okay? I'm just telling you what the topic that we're on, so we'll get to a question.
She's going to play lawyer. Objection. Basically, that's her objection. He's right. She's right, though. He has to ask her a question, but brilliant. I'd be surprised he didn't get an objection there. Giving you a header. On to the next subject.
Now, the government asked you about a time that you met Miss Magbano. It was actually spring break of March 2014, right?
I believe so.
You went down to Miami. You stayed with your brother, Charles.
I went down to Fort Lauderdale after being in Immokalee and stayed with my brother.
You then went to Miami Beach to Yardbird and had dinner outside with your boyfriend at the time, or who you were dating, Jeffrey Lacasse. Catherine McBanwell was there, and your brother, Charles Adelson, and you all ate outside, right?
We did.
And that's on Miami Beach, not in Fort Lauderdale.
Correct.
Now, just for context, Jeffrey Lacasse, he was also an FSU professor, not at the law school, but an FSU professor. Nice guy, right?
I don't think so now.
Now, you deny, I'm assuming, that on July 13, 2014, you told Jeffrey Lacasse that Charles looked into hiring a hitman. You deny that, or you admit that?
I deny that.
And that you told him that Charles looked into hiring a hitman back in September of 2013.
That never happened.
Which would have been months before your brother even met Catherine McBanwell.
I don't remember when they met.
Letting you know the topic we're on, we're talking about you being involved. That same week, earlier in the week, you sent an email. We're talking about the week of the murder now, not spring break, the week of the murder, not Yardbird, the week of the murder. You sent an email to Jeffrey Lacasse saying that you wanted to break up, that you needed space, right?
I did.
Sent him a long email, stay away, we're broken up, right?
I did.
You knew that on July 18, 2014, Jeffrey Lacasse was leaving town to go on a trip, right?
I knew he was leaving at some point that week. I don't remember when.
You knew that he was leaving on the same day of the murder at the same exact time as the murder.
I don't think I did.
11 a.m. on July 18, 2014.
I don't think I knew when he was leaving town.
It's a good way to put the blame onto somebody else. You'd agree on that, right? If it happened, it would have been a good way to put the blame on somebody else.
I have no idea when he was going to leave town.
Your interview, July 18, 2014, you said, you know, my brother, he joked about hiring a hitman. Perhaps that was you just planting a seed to divert the attention of law enforcement away from you.
It was not.
Let's jump off topic right now and talk about your boys' names. That in the time after the murder, you changed their last names from Markel to Adelson, right?
A year later, yes.
Why?
I was scared.
Of what?
Of someone coming to attack them.
So it's a year later, you won't.
Isn't that weird? She says of someone coming to attack them. Just the cadence is so weird. And attack them, not. So Dan Markel wasn't attacked. He was murdered. She's scared that someone's going to attack them. Like it'd be the first murder in the history of the world where, or one of them, where the hitman came after 2 children under 10. that aren't the parents, you know? I mean, she eliminated, any kind of family annihilation when she had Dan murdered, in my opinion. She's an unindicted co-conspirator. She's innocent until proven guilty. Just, she looks incredibly, as DeCoste points out, by all these things, credibly involved. So he starts out very interestingly saying, well, maybe this could have been done for you, which, I've gone over my reasons a million times why I don't think this could have been done for her. First of all, just the cliff notes. You do this as a gift or as a favor. If Wendy didn't want it done, it's an unreturnable gift. Oh, you didn't want the father of your children murdered? Oh, whoops. Too bad now. I guess he's gone. It's a pretty risky gift to go behind someone's back and not okay it with them. I just can't see this family doing it. They're all enmeshed. She drove by the crime scene. Her reaction, her complete lack of interest, the entire family's complete non-participation, refusal to participate, according to the police, according to Dan Rashbaum. They never asked, which I do not believe. I think they all lawyered up and said they wouldn't cooperate. The bump. If Donna's saying the TV's 5 in the bump, that means that that's a shorthand code word for the hit, and Wendy's alibi happens to be fixing the TV. So meaning that this was a code word used with the entire family. Had to be. Wendy had to know. And then there's her TV that she forced everyone to watch broken. She needed that TV to be broken, and she needed everyone to remember it was broken. On the day of the murder. So she had her kids on as a treat night, movie night, watch How to Train a Dragon 2 on a broken TV when she had a perfectly good TV, one of a similar make and model sitting in the next room with Jeffrey Lacasse was willing to hook up for everybody. Jeffrey Lacasse wasn't supposed to be listened to in the same way that the Adelson family banked on no one listening to Luis Rivera or Katie McBanawa. No one's going to believe those liars. No one's going to believe Jeffrey Lacasse, the jilted lover. In fact, I think Wendy loved the idea of telling Jeffrey Lacasse, my brother looked into hiring a hitman. I think it was an impulsive decision to tell him, but she loved the idea after the fact that he would go around knowing everything telling everybody everything he witnessed, and no one would listen to him. No one's going to think our family did it. No one's going to think the Adelson family, not our family, do something like this. All the law enforcement is so dumb. Listen to Harvey Adelson. I didn't think they were that smart. They're dumb. They're not going to put this together.
Look at anything because you don't want to know what's going on in the case. And the thought is, well, they're going to be protected if they have my last name and not Markel, right?
Yes.
Now, years later, arrests are made. It's clear who committed the murder, Sigfredo Garcia, Luis Rivera. The Adelson name has been dragged through the mud. Why haven't you continued to protect your boys and changed the name back?
I will be changing. I'm not going to change the name back. I don't think that will help. One day I'll change all of our names.
The government asked you about immunity, so let's get into that. You explained that as an attorney, you understand that when the government gives a subpoena for somebody to testify, that it conveys immunity, right?
That's my understanding. My knowledge of criminal law dates back to 2003 when I took a semester in law school, so forgive me.
Graduated law school, right?
This isn't my area of law.
When you clerked on the 11th Circuit, it was with Judge Jordan, right?
I did immigration appeals.
Yeah, but you still dealt with criminal stuff as well, too.
Very little.
So your understanding, though, is it doesn't mean they can't arrest you. They just can't use what you say here against you later on. So you're protected.
Correct.
And you needed that to testify, right?
It's just given to testify. It's not a question of whether I needed it. It comes with testifying.
You fear being charged by them. So you need to have that protection of
I
your
don't
words.
fear being charged for a crime I didn't commit. No.
Now, y'all had this nice exchange where it was pleasant, but there's actually tension between you and this office, right?
No.
They recently had your brother, Charles Adelson, arrested, and he's in custody, right?
Correct.
For first-degree murder.
Correct.
And there's no tension?
It's very uncomfortable to be here. It's hard to tell where the tension is coming from.
They've discussed your involvement in this case. They insinuated it on the direct examination. There's no tension?
Lots of media insinuates that I did something I didn't do too. I can't feel tension towards every person in the world.
That's funny. I thought you didn't look at anything.
I don't. That's why.
But you...
Right. Great pickup. Great pickup by DeCoste. This is really hard to do when you have something more lawyers should do is listen. So he picks up on that. So he's listening to the answers. So sometimes lawyers get so involved in going by their plan and they're taught that the question is everything. So when they're fed a great answer like that, like a meaty down the plate pitch like that, like, you know, everybody in the papers thinks I was involved. Really? I didn't think you read any of that. You don't read podcasts. You don't read the news. This incredibly scholarly person just skips over everything because her lawyer tells her not to. Incredibly egotistical person isn't interested, but somehow knows that the whole world thinks that she did it. This is like my godmother's an actress. They always say, I don't read reviews. But when she was in a movie or play, she'd always have them read to her. So technically, she didn't read reviews. She had them read to her. So it's funny. I don't read reviews. I don't know, critics. And isn't this like an actress response? Critics to my performance and the murder of my ex-husband. I don't get rave reviews, but, I don't read reviews. I hear the reviews of my performance in this have been poor as grieving, what is she? Ex-wife, ex-spouse, late ex-spouse, right? Oh, is that awful? So off note. Reminds me of Amanda Knox. Jeffrey McDonald in this category of way off key responses to what she's being asked.
You know that you know about the media, but you don't know about the media?
I know about the media because it keeps me from employment. It keeps me from lots of things in my life. I'm aware of what's there, but I don't read the minutia so I can sleep at night.
Ms. Adelson, 5 minutes ago, you said you don't look at any of that stuff.
I
Now I
don't
asked you a
look at
question.
it.
Let me finish.
Sure.
5 minutes ago, you say you don't look at any of that stuff. Now I ask you a question, you say you look at stuff.
That's not actually what I said. I said I'm aware that it exists, but I don't read it. I don't listen to it.
Then how do you know that they're bashing you?
You just told me they are.
I did?
Yeah.
How about this? We'll come back to it. You can think up a better answer, okay?
I'm not thinking up an answer. I'm telling you.
G. Lander says Wendy is Duper's delight personified. Yeah, I think there's Duper's delight, and then I just think she enjoys playing with DeCoste. This is a game for her. She doesn't have any real feelings about any of this. It doesn't go deep for her beyond a nervous stomach. It's not weighty, she's not weighted down by the emotions of life that tire you out. This is just a nuisance. And I don't think she feels real fear either. I think if anything, she's energized by it. Which is why she does things, risky things, can't help herself. life is very boring for her and flat because she doesn't experience any of those emotions. So going by the crime scene is the closest thing to feeling something. Having a lot of different partners, right? Challenge of it and the power of it keeps her occupied. Something, feels like it's like this constant, it's just like a void. I think Charlie filled it with, the pursuit of money, buying go-karts, a really arrested development, like a permanent teenager. I mean, go-karts, in your 30s, you're buying go-karts. Racing go-karts. I mean, I don't put it down if anybody else is into it. Just for him to get into it in that age, something you started earlier, is just odd, along with all the rest of his interests.
You the truth. I'm sorry if you don't want to listen to it.
Your basic understanding of
So that's the same way Charlie lied. Did you guys hear that? Let me go back a little bit. Hold on.
An answer. Yeah.
How do you know that they're bashing you?
You just told me they are.
I did?
Yeah.
How about this? We'll come back to it. You can think up a better answer, okay?
I'm not thinking up an answer. I'm telling you the truth. I'm sorry if you don't want to listen to it.
See, Charlie lied in the same way at his trial. My opinion. Don't sue me, Wendy. I'm telling you the truth, which is the way truthful people answer. They're smart enough to know that. I'm not making up a story. This is the truth. Charlie Adelson had the same kind of answer. He knew that would be a winner. However, every other word out of his mouth and his story was just so unbelievable.
Basic understanding of criminal law, though, you know that if the defense gives you a subpoena, you get no immunity.
Correction, improper question.
I'm not going beyond that question.
All right, that's the only question you can ask on that.
If I give you a subpoena, you don't get immunity, right?
Correct.
Now, let's talk about your parents. The government asked you about your mother and father, Donna and Harvey, right? The government could do the same and subpoena them so that this jury can watch them get questioned, not nicely how Ms. Kappelman questioned you, but to be cross-examined by me.
Objection, improper question.
I'm going to sustain that. Ask a different question.
Are your parents here in Tallahassee right now?
No.
Are they back in Miami?
Yes.
Do they have any plans of coming here this week or next?
I don't think so.
No. Your family dynamic. It is your mother and father, Harvey and Donna. There's you, you're the youngest, Charles, and then the oldest, Robert. Right?
Correct.
And he's a doctor up in New York.
Correct.
Now, the government asked you about the relationship, and you're like, we don't talk much. It's actually much deeper than that with Robert, isn't it?
We don't talk
At all.
at all.
And the reason is because your parents were so difficult about the woman that is now his wife.
That is not the reason why we don't talk.
I'm not talking about the reason why you don't talk. Let me clarify it. The reason why your parents don't talk to him.
That's not the reason why they don't talk with him.
Are you saying to this jury that there wasn't a problem where they outright objected to his marriage of a woman that was not of the Jewish faith?
That was initially what happened. And then there was actually a beautiful reconciliation, and they're very happy about the marriage.
Robert and his wife, not your family.
Robert and his wife and our family were very happy about Robert's marriage.
So what happens is that Robert is in love with a woman. Your parents object. He breaks up with her and then dates a Jewish woman, right?
And then they got married and divorced, and then he got back together with the person he wanted to be married to. Yes.
With his true love.
Yes.
But there was a lot of tension in your family because of your family's involvement in the kids' marriages, right?
Yes.
Let's talk briefly about your children. The government had asked you, and the topic of the Jewish faith, keeping kosher. You mentioned a bat mitzvah at one point in time. You're currently planning a bat mitzvah for your oldest, right?
No, it already happened.
Okay, now that is a very, Christopher, I'm obviously not Jewish, but my understanding is that it is a very, very important thing in the Jewish faith.
It's a very important milestone.
And for those that are very conservative in the Jewish faith, those that keep kosher, so to speak, It's even bigger.
I don't know that it's more important to one segment of Judaism over another, but it's an important coming of age ceremony.
It's where a boy becomes a man.
Absolute nonsense that someone who keeps kosher and is more devoutly Jewish would be absolutely more excited for a bar mitzvah than someone who didn't keep kosher and didn't see it as that ultimate milestone of becoming a man. It's a ridiculous answer. I'm not sure if someone who's devotes their life to Judaism in such an intense way that they are willing to make the sacrifices to keep kosher, as to someone who doesn't keep kosher and is just doing it the way, you know, some people get their children baptized and never come back to the church again or whatever. I mean, it's like someone who's devoutly Catholic, their communion. Well, they didn't see their communion as someone who just did it to make the relatives happy. Oh, it didn't mean more to the person who was devoutly Catholic than the. So these are ridiculous answers. And she knows that Jews are such a tiny segment of the American population that most of the jury won't know that there's no such thing as kosher style. And knows that, and that she's lying through her teeth. I mean, this is such a ridiculous answer. She gave these answers in a New York court with just a couple Jewish people on the jury. There would be howling of laughter coming out, or at least shock and surprise. And it would be talked about in the jury room, no doubt. This is absurd, absurd. It was we just had kosher style food at the bar mitzvah that wasn't really important to any of the super Orthodox and devout Jewish people there. Oh.
Did you invite Dan Markel's parents, the kids' grandparents?
I did.
You invited them?
I invited them, yes.
When was the last time they saw face-to-face their grandchildren?
April 20th,
Of this year?
just now.
And you agree with me that it had been years since 2016, since the last time they had seen them?
The visit stopped when they threatened to put my children in foster care, yes. But up until that point, they did have visits.
You got no problem letting them see your brother Charles, right?
I'm sorry?
You have no problem letting them hang out with your brother Charles, who's now sitting in custody for first-degree murder.
Oh, they can't see him now, can they?
No, they can't, but I'll ask the questions. For years, they weren't able to see their grandchildren despite their pleading to you to see them, but you let me finish, but you let them hang out with your murdering brother, right?
The children were permitted to see their grandparents. I cooked for them. We had play dates. They had sleepovers. When a letter surfaced that they were trying to have my children placed in foster care, the visits stopped. My brother never threatened to put my children in foster care, and if he had, the visits would have stopped with him too.
You say you love your boys.
I do say I love my children.
Don't care about the father that they love. What
I
happened?
never said that I don't care about the father that they
Then
love.
look at some of the discovery and help figure it out.
Excuse me?
Then look at some of the evidence and help figure it out so that more lives aren't ruined by this.
I seem to not
Mr.
understand.
DeCosta, you need to ask a question now. You're making statements now. You need to ask a question.
Understood, Your Honor. If I could have one brief second to check with co-counsel. Ms. Adelson, we started this by saying that this is all about you. It started with you because of this marriage, right?
No. Well, you had tried to say that, but I don't agree.
Ms. Adelson, I'm going to make one final attempt through questions to implore you. You understand that you can't protect your brother Charles, who's going through this case, and protect yourself at the same time. You understand that, right?
I'm here to share the truth with you. I don't know how to answer the question.
Then please end the madness and share the truth. Will you please share the truth with this jury?
I've been sharing the truth since I walked in here. I've done nothing but share the truth.
You know.
Do you get what I'm saying? This is Wendy speaking for the whole family. She's been given immunity. She could spill at least some of it. Nothing that will ever implicate anyone in the family. This is Wendy speaking for the whole family. I mean, as one head in the four-headed person monster that they are. And this is the way that they're all going to go to their graves like this. They never had anything to do with this. They've told the truth. Everyone in Tallahassee is wrong. The lie must be protected at all costs.
What happened here, despite your claims to the jury that you haven't looked at anything, you haven't discussed with anybody, and you haven't confronted your brother, you know what happened here, right?
I do not know what happened here. And if I did, I would have shared it with the police 8 years ago.
You know that your brother went behind your back, don't you?
I do not.
Like he always does. This is something that he has always done, isn't it?
Not.
You found out after that your brother had done this and gone behind your back. That's why you were thrown up at that dinner, right?
No, it's not.
You know that it didn't involve Katie either, right?
I don't know anything about
If you're not going to say all of that and finally give the truth, why don't you just admit to this jury that you're guilty?
Because I'm not guilty.
A brief moment,
Back to the water bottle. You know, they go to water in times of stress. So bossy Texas chick has an interest. Always an interesting mind. Says, I think Donna's trial will be a huge disappointment. Justice will either be swift and quick, but unexciting, or she will walk. But no way do I think her trial will be exciting. Just a feeling I get. Interesting. I mean, in some ways, I think that if we're looking for someone to come and tell everything from A to B, I just don't think that, A to Z basically will ever happen in this case, is what I was saying, bossy. If you're looking to be spoon-fed by one conspirator or one witness, I think the closest we've come to that is Jeffrey Lacasse. I mean, he tells the story, at least for Wendy's involvement in it, as an unindicted co-conspirator. I mean, just as a conspirator, period. Obviously she's innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. But as for telling the story, it's so clear if you really listen to his testimony, his police interview, it's so clear that this was a family affair in the way that the Adelsons do things as a family. You get married for the family. You marry someone that pleases the family. And if you don't, you're right. It causes trouble, right? You're pretty much discommunicated or threatened with it, as Robert was. You have to marry, this is unacceptable. So you have to marry someone acceptable to the family, which is so interesting that here's Charlie has a baby with Wendy's boyfriend's nanny, Bree, much younger than himself and not Jewish. But okay. He doesn't have the high expectations that Robert and Wendy, I mean, he barely got through dental school only with the help of the Weinstein family. Got him through. He was failing out. Judge Weinstein got him a diploma. That's the story, certainly.
I got nothing further.
Redirect.
Okay, so I think that's a good place to leave it here for today. But I think that There is a lot more to be said and found out in this trial. Will this end up being the ultimate irony? I think we're on will it end with Donna? Or will the public will to see Wendy indicted for this crime and tried for this crime ultimately win out? Certainly, as I've been talking about on this channel for years and years and years, our courts, unfortunately, don't work in a vacuum. Public pressure does influence our courts. In this way is the public outcry that everyone else will go down for, and that's what Krista Kost is asking Wendy in that cross-examination. It's all done for you. It's all about you, right? And you're going to just walk off into the sunset with her 2 children, with sole custody of her 2 children, excuse me, unmarried, ironically. So I'm going to end this episode the way I end so many of these episodes, with an impact letter, since so much of this has been about with a kosher style letter from Dan Markel's rabbi. This was a victim impact letter written for Dan Markel to Judge Hankinson, who has since passed on, in Sigfredo Garcia's trial and Catherine McManawa's first trial. Dear Judge Hankinson, we had the merit and pleasure to know Danny and see him at our shul often. When he moved to our town and later with his kids, he would come with them and set an example of a loving and dedicated father. He was always so friendly and had a great influence on the community. He was our Cohen priest who would do the priestly blessing for us. His passing was a great loss for us as personal friends and for the community as a friend and a role model for a guy who was so dedicated to Judaism and to his children, while at the same time a hard-working man. We miss him very dearly, and he will forever be remembered. Rabbi Schnorrer and Chancey Orickman, Shabbat of Tallahassee. Please hit the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, leave me a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, leave me a comment. I get so much out of your comments. And I'll see you Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern. Have a great night, everybody.